can tell me what they think hunter-gatherers would have eaten. Okay, so yeah, hunters, obviously they would have been killing things, yeah, so... Okay, berries, yeah. Definitely for gatherers, you know, berries are one of those things that you're going to get plenty of. What else?
Fish.
Yeah, so fish, we'll put that under the meat product. So under the meat comes meat, poultry, fish, also eggs we'll put under that bracket as well. Yeah. What else?
Nuts.
Yeah, nuts and seeds.
Leaves and vegetables?
Yeah, great, vegetables, yeah. Okay, so the paleo prescription, the paleo diet in a nutshell is eat meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, few starches and no sugar. Sugar just wasn't available 10,000 years ago in the form that it is today. Yeah, there's just no availability. You can get sugar, you can get natural sugars in your fruits, and people will say, well, what about honey? Yeah, hunter-gatherers would have eaten some honey if they came across it, but this wasn't very much of it, yeah. But the refined sugar that we have nowadays, it just was not available, and refined sugar is the thing that's going to give you the biggest insulin response, because that's what's going to release into your bloodstream the quickest. Yeah, so that the sugar is going to make your sugar levels rocket up, your body's going to pump out loads of insulin, and that's going to make you store loads of fat. Yeah, so the no sugar bit is the paleo prescription. The few starches, there's a few things. I'm going to actually send you all an email with the sheets that I give out to my clients that are learning this. Under the meat section comes pretty much every meat that you can think of in its natural form. Yeah, so pork, chicken, lamb, all the different fish you can think of, eggs, that's all good stuff. There is
Dairy.
We'll come on to that in a moment. But yeah, within like the meat section, pretty much any meat you can think of. Things like sausages and bacon, they're one of those kind of borderline things in paleo that there's often, like for instance, sausages often got a bit of rusk and stuff like that, which is starchy carbohydrate. And bacon has been quite heavily processed. And within paleo, we want to just try and eat as natural as we possibly can. Yeah. But I think bacon and sausage is one of those borderline things. There's a few things that are slightly on the side of okay, we'll allow that every now and then, and some things slightly on the it's not perfect, and we're going to try not to eat that, but it's close to the line. So sausages and bacon, I would say one of those things are quite close. Vegetables, pretty much anything you can imagine under the normal vegetable section, apart from starchy root vegetables, so your potatoes, yams, stuff like that. People often say, what about carrots? Carrots is one of those things that we put slightly on the allowable side. They're quite starchy, but there's so much goodness in them, and they're not quite as bad as eating like potatoes, white potatoes.
So is that the same for like beetroot, parsnip?
Beetroot's all good.
Yeah.
Again, parsnip and swede, they're one of those ones, I would say they're slightly on the wrong side. I try to discourage people from having those. But like, once in a... You like those?
And squash.
Yeah, so like sweet potatoes, butternut squash, things like parsnip and swede, they're quite high glycemic, which means that sweet potato is lower glycemic. There's a few things there's a couple of other things that kind of overlap with this a little bit as well. So does anyone know about glycemic index, glycemic load-in? Yeah. So that's a measure of how quickly the sugar is released into your bloodstream. So that's another thing to be aware of. If you're not sure on anything like that, and you want to ask me questions, you can just email me or you fire them off to me in class or whatever. But yeah, parsnips and swedes, they do release reasonably quickly, but I would say they're ones that are closer to the line. If you're going to falter on something, better that than a plate full of white rice, or even worse like bread or something like that. Yeah, bread's a nightmare. So the biggest thing you want loads and loads and loads of in terms of vegetable front is green leafy stuff. Yeah, just eat it like it's running out of fashion. Like there's only a small supply, and you guys try and fill your plate with as much greens as you can. You know, I literally get up for breakfast and have a bowl of broccoli in the morning. Things go.
Can you have pulses then?
Yeah, we'll get tell what comes on. Yeah. So dairy, impulses and that kind of stuff. I'm going to cover that in a moment. But vegetables as much as possible, greens. Yeah, so the dark green stuff the better. And then outside of that, just loads and loads of variety. Yeah, so your tomatoes, mushrooms, onions, peppers, blah blah blah, courgettes, all that stuff. They're all good, yeah. And I'll send you a list. It's not a completely exhaustive list, but I'll send you a list of stuff that is great to have, and then a list of stuff that you're going to try and avoid. Yeah.
Does paleo discriminate about cooking and not cooking?
So it's not a raw food diet. Yeah. So some people will try and sell the idea of raw food. Paleo doesn't say you should only eat raw food at all. There's arguments. There's loads more arguments. That's a whole another discussion, really. The kind of raw food diet, but. I certainly don't. I mean, I have lots of salad, but I certainly don't try and eat everything raw.
Chicken.
Very briefly, there's.
I was thinking more of turnips.
I won't go into that too much, but yeah, it's not encourage you to only eat raw.
Okay.
It's cooking's fine. Try not to stew the hell out of it so all the goodness comes out. You know, just try and steam it so then just eat it still firm if you can. You know, like al dente was it? Yeah, yeah. But not. Just don't stew it so it's just like mush. Because then there won't be any goodness left in it. Okay, nuts and seeds. Yeah, all the nuts and seeds apart from peanuts, which come under the legume section, which we're going to move on to in a moment. But everything under the nuts. Things like cashews are actually starchier than other nuts, so they're not so good, but they're on the allowable but have less of side of things, yeah. But things like Brazil nuts, almonds, walnuts, hazelnuts, what else am I missing? Pistachios, again, they're quite starchy, a bit like cashews, but they're on the allowable side.
Macadamias.
Yeah, pine nuts are great. Macadamias are really, really high in fat. And they're low in protein, but they're on the allowable side. But you wouldn't want to net loads and loads and loads and loads of macadamias. You'd probably get your fat levels a little bit too wrong if you had too many of them. But they're good ones, good healthy fats in those. But yeah, particularly really, really good ones: Brazil nuts, walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds. Yeah, they're excellent nuts to have loads and loads of. And you want to be grazing on nuts quite regularly. And all the seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, all that good stuff. Most fruits are allowable, but some fruits are starchier than others. So bananas are quite a starchy starchy fruit. So a banana would be a once in a blue moon if you're starving hungry, or if you go back to workout kind of thing, rather than an everyday loads and loads of bananas. You see sportsmen eating bananas, that's because they're in the middle of a tennis match and they need loads of available blood sugars. If you're looking to try and keep your body fat low, they're quite starchy. Depends why you're doing this. If you're doing this because you've got body fat to cut, like I'm going to try and lose some body fat starting from January again, try and cut half a stone to a stone. I'm definitely going to have banana once in a blue moon. Yeah, but if you haven't got as much fat to lose, then bananas would be one of those things you could possibly have a little bit more.
What about dried fruit? Dried fruit.
Okay, so good question. Yeah, so. Dried fruit is one of those things that's like a paleo treat. That because it's dried out, it concentrates the sugar, so it is going to have a quicker release. Some other fruits release sugars fairly quickly as well, but the best thing to do is have some nuts and seeds with the fruit. What I mentioned earlier about the slowing down of the release of sugars when you eat fat, if you have some nuts and seeds with your fruit, then that fat content in the nuts and seeds will slow down the fructose release from the fruit. So that's always a good thing to do. Try not to eat fruit on its own. Try and have some fruit and try have a little handful of nuts and seeds with it. Yeah.
What's the best fruit?
So berries are some of the best things to have. Berries are really slow release and a slightly different type of sugar than other fruits. So berries are awesome. Apples and pears and things like that. The citric ones, there's some other issues with those, but they're not on the ban list at all. But I would suggest the best thing to have is like loads and loads of berries, all the different berries you can think of. They're expensive, yeah. I buy the frozen stuff in Tesco's, yeah, and they're like half the price and bigger quantities, and they're nice actually. They're good quality. So definitely, if I'm going to have smoothies, definitely I'll use the frozen stuff because there's no need. Obviously you've got to defrost it if you're going to eat it normally, but I think the frozen stuff's good. No, you eat it. You eat straight frozen.
No, it just
melts. Was there another question about fruit there? I heard. No. Yeah, very few starches. So in the starches, I would put in the bananas are in there, and if you're going to have, we're going to talk in a moment about how you're going to implement it personally. But if you're going to have any starches, things like rice and potatoes and pasta, very little on your plate if you want to get the balance of your fats, proteins, and carbs right. Yeah, so it's very small portions of starchy stuff. And then just try to go for as little sugar as you can possibly have. I can go no sugar for 3 months, starting January the 1st.
Can you have coffee?
Okay, so things on. This is what we want you to focus. This is what we want to focus on, yeah. This is what I want you to. This is what I want you to avoid. So starches we've already discussed. As I said, we're going to talk about this in a moment, how you're going to implement it. And you can each do individually as much or as little of this as you want to do. I'm not going to say to you, you have to do this, otherwise you're not in the class anymore. Yeah? You can do as much or as little as you want to do. I know there's some people here that will try to do this 100%, and there's other people that think, I want to do a bit of it, I want to try some of it. And that's fine, you set your own goals, and we'll try and support each other through achieving those goals, and we won't judge each other or anything, yeah? But strict paleo, there's a few different types of paleo as well. There's a guy called Lauren Cordain who wrote a book called The Paleo Diet, and that's the one that I tend to follow and teach. And he teaches no dairy and no legumes, no caffeine, no alcohol, etc. Now, there's another book called Neanderthin, and there's another one.
Just for the name.
And some of the others say that dairy isn't as bad, and what I tend to do with my personal training clients, I get them to do it 100% for 3 weeks, and then I get them to reintroduce dairy and reintroduce legumes systematically so that they can watch what happens when they reintroduce them. Now you're a vegetarian, aren't you?
Anything with the dairy, because don't you need calcium?
Great question.
Yeah,
tell you what, try and remember that one.
Yeah.
Come back to me in a minute with that, because that's a good question that often comes up. So I'm not a nutritionist, yeah, so I can't tell you this is definitely how we're blood. I've read stuff and I study and I pass it on, yeah. And my best guess at the moment is that some people are more tolerant to dairy than others. There's another diet called the blood type diet, and they use your blood type to determine what food you should be eating. And the argument is that if you're a certain blood type, it's since a certain genetic modification and that you can eat dairy. So there's this argument, you can look at your blood type and then you can work out if you should be eating dairy or not. I find it a lot easier to just go cut out dairy for a few weeks, try reintroducing it, watch what happens, you'll soon get to know. Amelia is, she's asthmatic, and she didn't realise for ages that dairy affected it. She cut dairy out for a while, and then when she reintroduced it, she realised her asthma's worse, and her allergies, hay fever and stuff like that is worse in the summer if she eats dairy. So she knows she's got some level of intolerance to dairy. Other people have got much worse intolerance and come out really bad and have horrible stomach pains and stuff like that. So the best thing to do is to cut it out for a little while, because some people have never ever cut out dairy in their life. You know, they've been eating it since they're little kids, and then just have no idea how tolerant they are to it, because you can have all these intolerances happening in your body and you just don't realise until you cut it out and reintroduce it how bad it was. So I'd suggest giving it a go, trying to cut it out for a few weeks and then systematically but don't chuck everything back in at the same time. So don't cut out dairy and legumes and then go woof, all of it back in, because then you won't know if you get any bad effects, you won't know which is going to be.